So I was
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 24th. The agenda for this evening is a brief 2017 budget update from Bonnie. And we were planning on having a discussion on the 2018 budget and capital planning after, with some feedback from the selectmen, but they did not get to it last night. But I'm going to ask Bonnie to go through what she was going to present to them last night. And then we'll spend a few minutes talking about our annual report preparation. And normally the people who aren't at the meeting get volunteered to do it, and I note that Greg and Tom aren't here, so I'll just go on record as saying that. And then we'll have public input, and lo and behold, we have public tonight. And then member updates, minutes, and then adjournment. So that's the agenda, and we'll start. Bonnie, if you have anything in terms of a 2017 update, then we can talk about that. If not, we'll go right on to 2018.
Sure. 2017 is still on target. We had set the tax rate with the new growth projections that we had received kind of late in the process, but were certified by the Department of Revenue. So we are still on target. I've been tracking the revenue projections. They've been looking good. All of the items that we increased, such as rooms and meal tax, have been meeting their projections, so I'm comfortable that we're going to land where we are. I did get some information late tonight regarding 2018 state aid projections, which are a little bit less than what I had originally projected, so I've modified some of my information that I had prepared for the selectmen last night. Not significant, but you know, there is a little bit of a lag in both Chapter 70 and local aid. So, but 2017 is looking on target.
But Chapter 90 is okay so far?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
We've already submitted for reimbursement on the Nagog Hill project for the engineering expense, so we're expecting that shortly.
Okay, good. Any concerns or questions on anything going on this year that Bonnie could talk to? That
When you're on budget, you're good.
Yeah.
all righty. And snow and ice, obviously,
We're just looking at getting towards our deficit, so for the next meeting on the 6th and 7th, I'll give you an update on that, where we stand, but I think we're looking at tapping into the deficit. With the updates to the Municipal Relief Act last year, there is a different process, which I'll go through and brief the board on, but it would allow the town administrator to tap that deficit when necessary, rather than having a vote of both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So administratively, it cleans it up. We budget for it. You know, it's just a matter of process.
now, is that change something that has to be voted at town meeting, or is that something that we can avail ourselves of this year?
It's not something that needs to be voted at town meeting, but I did ask the Department of Revenue if there needs to be a locally voted procedural. So if both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen need to accept
Agree
it.
to it, then?
So I haven't received an answer back on that yet, but as soon as I do, I'll bring it
Okay.
forward.
Okay,
But
good.
we're getting ready to hit it. It's
Seems like it's been a light winter, but I know you do that on purpose anyway, because you don't want to
Yeah.
not use it, but.
Okay, good. Okay, and if you want to move on to 2018,
Sure.
or what you were going to present to them last night, and then we can at least be up to date.
There's two memos that I provided that I had given to the Board of Selectmen previously. One is for the capital plan and one is for the budget process. So I'll start with the capital plan, if you don't mind. I'm going to see if I can open this first. Mine's a little slow.
Is
It's
that one
gonna
turned on?
open, hang on.
Can't get there from here.
I know, it's very slow. Here we go. There we go.
Ta-da!
Okay.
Beautiful function.
So these were the slides that we showed back in the fall
Yeah.
for the November town meeting, with the analysis on capital spending with the fire station and the alumni debt. The blue is the existing money that we're currently spending on capital. What we were looking at doing is reducing the amount of capital in fiscal 2020 to accommodate the fire station debt. With the information that we received late, almost right prior to town meeting, with the additional new growth funds, we've been able to augment the capital plan with those funding, and I made that clear to the selectmen last night. What we want to do is, in fiscal '20, where I have it kind of highlighted right here, it was going to be reduced down to about $1.6 million in capital spending for the regular town capital plan, which would include maintenance of facilities, replacement of equipment, regular operations replacements. With this influx of new growth that was unprogrammed, we would be able to maintain the capital spending at just over $2 million, almost $2.2 million, which is still less than what we would be doing, what we are doing currently. We're spending about $2.7 million currently. That does include other funds such as cable, when the cable LCTV purchases equipment. It also includes any other trust funds or CPC funds that might be augmenting the capital plan. But it does maintain the capital plan at a level that is above that 2 million marker, which I think is kind of critical in my own analysis. I get very nervous when I see capital going below 2 million. We've been above 2 million for probably 5 or 6 years now. So to cut it at that level seems kind of draconian.
We're
at
just
this- at
happy to
this
see it
point.
above zero.
Yeah. So what this does is basically allows the blue that you see here to stay above the 2 million marker for capital spending for equipment and maintenance. The red is the fire station debt that we had planned on, since fiscal 2014. And the green is the alumni debt. Basically, that green is that additional new growth that we received certified in November. So with this plan presented in this way, we're preserving that blue, which is our regular maintenance and replacement schedule.
I'm concerned about the blue because,
Me too. Me too.
because PMBC this year only asked for $299,000 as opposed to close to $4,800 last year, $480,000 last year. And fiscal 18 and 19, I think, will be fairly level as far as PMBC requests, but after 2019, it will increase dramatically because of the needs of the facilities.
Correct.
So I'm very concerned about that blue being stable, if that's the word you're going to use.
If
And according to this goes down when you're saying you're going to need a lot more.
That's my concern.
it's going down regardless,
Right.
even though you are going to need more. But if we did not include that 576,000 in additional new growth, it would be down that much more.
You're down
So
1.7.
be down to 1.6, 1.7 million.
I
Here, we're
understand
preserving
that, but, maintaining the infrastructure, the town facilities is just a sound investment, and not investing in that is going to cost more money down the road.
We
Correct.
got ourselves in a lot of trouble that way in the past by not doing it.
Right.
Well, we deal with that, I think, on a priority basis. When we reach those years you're talking about, then we talk about what goes into the capital budget. Maintenance becomes it moves up at priorities. And we fund
It
that
does.
before we fund something else.
Well, the question I have on FY '18 you've got a significant step up, which is the green, which sounds like it's around $500,000. Now, is that going into stabilization?
No,
or is
that's the
that-
payment on alumni. That is the initial payment for the alumni debt, because we have alumni financed over a short period. See the green? So we've got it financed over 8 years at over $500,000 a year to get that eliminated in short-term issuances.
Okay, so you, in effect, you're showing alumni in green
Correct.
and
Fire in
the
red.
growth in, or you're holding up the blue with the 500,000 in.
The green essentially represents the new growth that we.
That's just
influxed.
coincidental.
That-
It
that's
works
what I
out.
It
that way.
thought.
it happened to
Coincidental.
be,
About the same
Yeah.
amount. Okay.
yeah, we had programmed $1.4 million in new growth, and we got $1,987,000.
And so, and you discussed this with the Board of Selectmen already, and they're more or less in agreement with
Yeah,
this
I
approach?
presented it to them last night. They
Okay.
did not vote.
Right.
They did not, but I did walk up to the screen and show them the influx and how it was being used, to show that it was supporting the alumni debt, so that we could maintain the blue capital spending
Okay.
that we've been planning on all along.
The other thing we just have to look at real closely as we get now, and as we get closer to the 20 and so on, and it dips down, is do we need overrides for some of that stuff? I mean, that's always an option if we really have to. And, I mean, some of us assumed we were going to get there eventually anyway because of doing these major things inside. So it really wouldn't be that much of a surprise, I don't think.
And I think one of the
We'll see when we
important
get there.
questions that came up last night was, why was new growth so much more than was projected? And it's a great question because, we try and do the best we can in projecting those amounts, but we've seen a tremendous increase in interest in property around here. So when we estimate new growth, we do it on building permit estimates. So they project, a $500,000 home, and that's what we base our new growth on. The home then sells for $750,000. So we've got a big difference there. One of the big points was Potpourri, the distribution drive facility, was estimated at $20 million. It's a $30 million facility. Those are big differences. They were good estimates at the time that they came in. Sales are sales. There's been a lot of interest in the community based on the demographics and the location, so we've seen a spike in that type of activity.
We'll forgive you for underestimating.
I'd rather underestimate and come back with
We're
this.
hoping the growth hasn't run out yet. Hopefully, we haven't peaked.
I'm hoping it's not a bubble. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the fear. Is it a bubble that's going to burst at some point? And that's what we saw back in 2007, 2008.
See it about every 10 years.
Right. So, cyclically, it's not surprising. Fingers crossed, but
So this is everything within the levy, is that right?
yes.
So if and when the library comes on board, that's an override.
If it-
Unless, there's some number of years out when alumni's paid off, and if you want to fit it in here and assume the alumni debt, assuming it fits, and assuming that the town wants to do that, you're looking at 2026 at the earliest. If
Well,
it's,
and it may be that the library doesn't get their grant for 3 or 4, 5 years.
Right,
So, I mean,
right.
that's, if they don't get the grant, then it's really difficult for us to, I think of building a $12 or $14 million library, whatever the number is. But if you get the grant, then it sort of comes into the realm of possibility, I think, but probably not for 5 or 6 years anyway, I would think.
Well, I mean, the grant's only good for 5 years, so they would get it within 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay,
So
okay. Well,
from, I think, next, I think it's this summer.
Is when we'll find out.
Yeah.
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 But if they don't get it, they stay in line until the next round of funding and
No,
then the next round.
then you have to reapply.
Oh, that's not the
And
way it was explained.
I believe the meeting last night, they had mentioned it wouldn't happen again until,
It's every 5 years.
2025, 26, somewhere in there.
Okay,
And then you have to
that's-
reapply.
Okay,
Right.
that's different than I understood, that, I thought I heard that, they would stay in line, and as more funds are allocated.
That's the way I understood it, too.
That's
yeah.
what, but.
Well,
it
they
may
would
mean
stay
you're-
in line, they would stay in line by reapplying.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think my understanding is that they would stay in line in this round, say they approved 6 communities or 10 communities or whatever, and those communities weren't able to follow through with town meeting votes.
Oh, okay.
So then
That's
there
where
might
it
be
is.
additional funding available that would get into the next set of communities that were
Yeah.
in line. But then, it would expire at some point, and you'd have to reapply.
Right.
Okay.
33 applied, I know.
Yep.
Okay.
So with that being said, we have inside the levy, without looking at LCTV funds and Clean Lakes, we have about a $2.5 million available to spend on capital for this fiscal year. So what I did is took a look at the capital requests, tried to put them in priority order by the department's information, and come up with a draft funding plan. So I have a just over $2.7 million plan drafted for you for review. The board looked at this briefly last night. They did not vote on anything. They did not prioritize anything. But I just kind of wanted to walk you through, what is in this draft funding plan. Within the requests, it looks like there might be 2 projects that may qualify for community preservation funds. I don't know whether they'll be considered or approved, but they may qualify, and they're both recreation projects. One is for 300 King Street, and it's $30,000 for basically landscaping and seating. With the new facility there are no seats, there's no benches, there's no place for people to sit. It's very active now, so they want to add that into the facility. The Long Lake Bathhouse and concession area needs to be rebuilt. That's been something that's been on their radar for a number of years. They're estimating that to be $300,000. So they may or may not qualify for CPC funds. They are included in this funding plan, not with CPC funds, but it may relieve some pressure on the plan.
And that's in this 1.293 number?
Correct.
That- Okay.
So my draft is as follows. For the police department, I'm looking at funding the interceptor vehicles that need to be replaced. There's 2 cruisers that are marked. There's that's at $117,000. Public safety radio maintenance, we do this annually. It's just about $12,000. It protects over $1 million in infrastructure, so kind of one claim makes it pay for itself. Police vehicle maintenance, $7,000, primarily for tires, vehicle maintenance that may be needed on the fleet. And the K-9 vehicle needs to be replaced at $30,000. Fire department.
Excuse me, Bonnie, so for the ask, did the police department get what they asked for?
They did. For this particular
Okay.
round, they got funded at everything that they had asked for.
Okay.
Yes. And I did give you the full ask list. I emailed it to you. It was a pretty big document. I didn't
Yeah.
print it for this evening, but
Right.
it's a pretty big document. The fire department, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about in here. The major equipment and repair is recommended funded at $25,000. This is an increase. I think it was at $15,000 for this year. So it's a $10,000 increase. And this protects the major equipment, the ladder truck, the pumpers, the rescue vehicles for maintenance. And it can be only used for that. Protective equipment, so this is their turnout gear. This is part of an annual replacement program rather than purchasing all the equipment at once and having it kind of expire all at once. $12,000. And engine 4 refurbishment, it's $125,000 to refurbish the 2007 Smeel pump truck. There are 2 other items in here that we need to kind of keep an eye on. One is the ladder truck that is requested at $1,125,000, and the outfit of the 2 ambulances for ALS service at $160,000. I did not make any assumptions on the ALS program because the selectmen haven't made any recommendations yet on whether or not they want to go with that program. But I did make recommendation further down in the plan to start saving money towards potentially for the ladder truck or some other piece of equipment or program in the amount of $400,000. So while it's not in here, it's in here later.
So I have a question, Bonnie. The $25,000 for the help me out, chief, here.
For the vehicle maintenance?
No, the little boxes that call dispatch.
Was a fire call box?
The alarm boxes.
Right, on the PMBC side.
Yeah.
For the fire alarm system.
Yeah. That's funded, that's already funded from an existing
We
fund?
have a revolving fund
Okay.
that those fees go into that has enough in it to fund the repairs or replacement
So
or whatever.
that's not part of this?
No.
No.
Okay, got it.
No, you don't need a warrant article for that. That's
Okay.
already covered.
The chief just has to go
Chief
tell
just
you?
has to approve it.
Okay.
So what is the expected timing, Bonnie, on the, like a decision on ALS, for example, because it does impact here, and the cascading and so on that happens if,
I was hoping to get, some indication last night, but
Mm-hmm.
they had requested time before your meeting on the 7th, so from 6 o'clock to 7:30 to debate and discuss what their priorities are for staffing and programming
okay.
for 2018.
I do have a request from the selectmen through Bonnie to move our meeting, our joint meeting from 7 o'clock to 7:30 on the 7th. It's not a big deal. That just gives them an hour and a half to go through the stuff. And what I would plan to do is to send Melissa a note just requesting that what we'd like to see is their recommendations on headcount, whether it's, the ALS, whether it's the police officer, the requests from the police department, Health and Human Services, what their thoughts are on those things. Because if we want to support any of those, then we need to, get those numbers plugged in and start looking at them.
Does this also include school staffing?
sorry?
Does this also include school staffing that you're referencing?
Well, that would come from, the school committee, but, yeah.
But we don't really control whether they can or can't hire additional people. They do that out of their budget, so it's a separate discussion, kind of, really.
Right.
Right?
But the town's operating budget
Yeah.
is sort of one thing, and then the schools are, how much can we afford to give the schools, and then they can spend it as they see fit.
Just out of curiosity, Chief, what was the life cycle of the ladder truck, if we were looking at when it was, or is, recommended to be replaced?
They're roughly 30 years.
Okay.
Overdue.
Yeah,
Okay.
will be 30 years next year, and it
Okay.
takes a year to build on top.
Thank you.
And you're not talking about replacing it with a ladder truck, you're replacing it with a boom truck?
It's a ladder. It's called a tower. It actually has
Tower.
a bucket on the front, and it'll also be known as a quint. It'll have a pump on it, and so it'll have a pump with water. It's again, our engine 2 was replaced 2 pieces of equipment. It's a multifunctional piece of equipment. This truck would be doing the same thing. Basically, you do have the ability to do more with less, with less people, that is.
So we can build a smaller fire station.
To hold 2 bigger trucks, yeah. Done. This truck, God forbid, if it were needed, like at the hotel or the apartments at 15 Gray Road, having the bucket per se, the tower, to go up to the 4th floor, you could take several people off of a balcony and put them on the ground instead of taking one by one off of a ladder. We could also use it as an initial response piece to a structural call. And, you have the ability to have the ladder usage as well as water on that truck, so we could do multifunctional piece of equipment.
One thing that came up at a previous meeting was what is the benefit of having water on that truck if you have a pump truck, available?
Depending on, the calls that it's at, or if that piece of equipment's there, as opposed to the pumper. I mean, if it's a large fire, you're gonna have multiple. But that unit could be somewhat self-supportive.
So is it less expensive to get it without a water tank, if
Yes.
you would?
Yes.
I-
Yeah, if we were to do another, like a straight stick, like we have now, no tower, no basket, no water, no pump, you're in the ballpark of 800,000.
Is that
And is the life expectancy of a truck that carries water less than the life expectancy of a truck
No.
that doesn't carry water? Because
Mass
I know that,
DOT makes the life expectancy of every
well,
truck.
historically,
You know,
It's the use of the
had
truck.
frame problems, right?
So ultimately, it boils down to our town, the demographics. Things are changing in the community. You know, we used to get 25 years out of a fire engine. We get 20 years now. We get 30 years out of a ladder. You could potentially see that go down to 25 years. It depends on the amount of the run volume, the calls that it goes to, how often it's used, and the frequency is increasing. So there's the potential. It could be 25 to 30 years. You know, the ladder is currently used less than an engine for staffing reasons. But if you were to get a piece of equipment that was a little more functional, has the water, multi-purpose, it may be used more. But it would still be, you know, roughly that 25 to 30 year timeframe.
Okay, so you're not concerned about the problems you have with pumps and tanks and frames if it's lugging tons of water around versus not lugging tons of water?
So even that, that doesn't hinge on the fact of whether or not it carries water. Like the deputy said, that hinges on Mass DOT and what kind of chemicals they want to put on the road, the frequency that that piece of apparatus is on the road, what it's being exposed to. And honestly, the ladder in the past, it wasn't going too much. That is now increasing. As staffing changes, we're able to get these pieces of equipment on the road and responding to these calls.
So there's less house fires now. You always say that. Why does the ladder go out more?
Because it's part of a response. When you get called for something, you don't know, it's not worth the gamble of saying, oh, we're only gonna send one truck to all these calls. When you get there and something is going on, and now you say, oh, I need these other pieces of equipment, you're talking 5, 7, 10-minute delay to get them. They should be on that initial response.
Yeah, I almost
And
think
that's
that-
what's required.
That's probably an argument for 30 years from now. But, I mean, this truck needs to be replaced, so
Right.
we need to be putting that into our projection somewhere.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to talk about,
Absolutely.
I'm assuming upkeep is just going to continually increase where it becomes
Well,
ridiculous.
and that's the reason for the increase on the maintenance.
Yeah.
Is specifically
Yeah.
directed at the ladder. We are experiencing hydraulic issues with the
Yeah.
truck.
So there will come a point where that probably gets,
And what do we have in capital stabilization now?
About 30,000.
Basically flowed $3 million through.
Right, 2.9
Part of,
to the fire
I mean,
station.
this was actually part of the radar when we started putting money away, because we knew this one was coming
right,
down.
I
but-
remember talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
But if I may, Fred, there's some of the things, you know, like the truck, the one we submitted, is galvanized frame rails on the truck. There's, the actual aerial device is galvanized. So we're looking, even the last engine we bought, we did stainless steel fuel tanks and stainless steel battery trays. So we're speccing trucks for corrosion, and so for longevity, and also the fact that we're looking at our engines and saying in 10 years we'd like to refurb them, so that we can get 20 years out of a $500,000 investment. So those are all things, you know, we're just throwing it out there saying it'll last this long. We're trying to make it so that it can handle all the corrosion issues that we've seen on some of the older trucks.
Well, our concern are town finances and, you know, how we can get the best bang for the buck,
Yep.
obviously. And recognizing that if we don't do it this year, it's going to fall apart one of these years, or it's not going to pass inspection. Should we be putting money into stabilization for it, specifically earmarked for this? I mean, that's something that we should
I think she said, you
Yeah, I
just
do.
put that as part of a
It's-
plan right now.
At the end of the plan, I do have a recommendation to put 403,000 into capital stabilization, which is above the 27,000 that we are required to put in. And I specifically said that, you could look at it towards a ladder truck or any other item that might be coming up on the horizon, but I knew the ladder truck was specifically something that's been kind of pushed off a little bit, but.
Okay,
So,
and that's covered within your graph.
Correct. Correct. So for the next one, we have highway, I'm sorry, for schools. The only thing that is not.
Talk about highway.
Highway.
You want to do highway? Sure. Oh, I missed it, I'm sorry, you're right. We have 261,536 recommended for highway. Their major equipment and repair is the same level as this year at 18,000. Again, it keeps the major apparatus that they have intact. A one-ton dump truck replacement at 68,000 to replace a 2009 F-450 with a plow and equipment. And the John Deere front-end loader at 175,000 to replace a 1998 model. It's pretty old.
Bonnie, do these numbers include, the selling the existing vehicle?
I believe within the capital documents for the highway, they are trade-in allowances for that.
Yeah.
So they always end up finalizing out a little bit different depending on, what the equipment,
They'll get.
what their maintenance is at the time.
Yeah.
But Jimmy is actually very good at getting actual quotes. He brings
Right.
you
Yeah.
actual submittals, so he's pretty good at that. So that's it for highway. There are a few things that are unfunded, but these are in his priority order requests, so the things that are unfunded are lower in priority schedule for him. The school department, 317,500, and the only thing that is not funded in that request is, I believe, a vehicle.
Oh, is that snow plow?
The plow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the other things are major, like, kind of technology issues or programming issues. So there's 115,000 for Chromebooks and miscellaneous technology to include video screens, anything that might need to be needed throughout the district. School resource materials at 100,000 for resource materials, including textbooks and training that might come along with that. Custodial equipment at 44,500 for the entire district for custodial equipment that's used to clean and maintain the facility. This cafe point-of-sale hardware is 8,000 to install new hardware within all the schools. And it's a point-of-sale hardware, so it's something that they use day to day. Folding chairs and carts, 15,000 in replacements in addition, again, throughout the district. And the Shaker Lane phone system, this one is definitely needed, 35,000 to replace a 15-plus-year-old current system that's like a DOS-based program. It's pretty ancient. We have a lot of problems with it. I could speak to that personally, just being in the building. When things go down, they go down there. So that's it for the schools. It's pretty consistent with what was funded last year at about 300,000. Cemetery, I did try to incorporate some of the things that the new superintendent mentioned at the budget hearing, but we're going to meet this week to kind of go through these final numbers. There is the RTV replacement. He might be looking at that with a lower number for a different type of model, and the mower and plow attachment might be a little bit higher, but essentially probably the same total dollar figures. But he's looking to replace the RTV with something that is better suited for the facility. It's a 2005 model. The mower and plow attachment is 15.7 here, but it might be a little bit more, just to do both for the department truck, to be able to go through those pathways and smaller, narrower roads. And the lowering device that they mentioned also at the budget hearing for 3,000.
Excuse me, Bonnie, but going back to the highway department,
Yep.
I know it was brought up as an afterthought, but what about a vehicle for the new engineer?
We are looking at taking the park and rec vehicle that sits in the parking lot out here and just reassigning it.
The one
Okay.
covered in snow out there?
Yep.
Okay.
So So we're looking at addressing. Actually, no, I'm sorry, they took the truck. They already did the truck. There was a small Ford Ranger pickup truck that was moved over there just this week.
Okay, so you didn't like Fred's recommendation from last time?
We found one. We found a vehicle. And Park and Rec was very gracious in allowing that. They use it in the summer, but they were able to work out the schedule for it, so
Good.
they work very well with the other departments. Park and Rec has also loaned out their van to the school department this past year, so they've been trying to work with the other departments on using their equipment.
Hope it's reciprocated.
Library, last year it was $5,000 for furnishings replacement. This year it's $7,500 to replace worn and damaged furnishings and, bookcases and things like that. They did indicate in their plan that whatever they purchased would be able to move into the new facility if that were approved. But it is an increase from $5,000 to $7,500.
The second floor roof is leaking in the library?
Well, that's under PMBC.
Yeah, I understand that, but it just dawned on me that with the library here, that it's leaking now and
It
what's
is, yep.
happening with that?
Yep.
My understanding is that's being addressed now. Bill Cole actually was working with Gail.
Gail,
Yeah.
to
get-
develop plans and specs to put out on the street to bid the work.
We've tried to fix that roof.
There's
Frankly, every
different
year.
levels. There's there's a
Yeah.
lower level, there's an upper level, there's another level.
We seem to do a different level each year.
Yeah.
So this year, we were hoping to get away without doing it. We have money for it, but then it started to leak. So we have the funds.
Do we have the funds?
Yes.
We do.
Then,
Like I said, the design documents are being prepared now. So we're anticipating that going out and being done this spring.
okay. All right.
Recreation, there are two items under the general recreation department. And again, one of them was referenced in the, maybe being potentially CPC approved. But for 300 King Street, 30,000 for seating and landscaping to finish that design for 300 King Street. The other is a 12-passenger van. There's a tremendous demand for the van that they're using. Right now, they're sharing it with the school committee. They've authorized that the school committee use it in the seasons that rec is not using it, and they are actively using it. Alicia and I happened to meet today, and she said, she's looking at another model that is almost like a minibus model, but would be more utilized by both departments, and instead of paying an outside vendor to come in and do the busing. So she's working out those cost estimates now, but she thinks it might be $50,000, but she's looking at that now. It would be at least $25,000 to replace that
Yeah,
It does, yeah.
12-passenger.
Can't even get a sedan for that.
and again, just on the field study, I emailed back and forth with Ivan on that, and he doesn't feel he'll be ready for May town meeting. So this saga that started a year and a half ago goes on and on and on, so we need to, it'll be what it is, I guess, at the end of the day, but
Well,
Is it crazy?
he did say that some of the things they can't look at because it's winter. Some of the fields you can't make a determination until it thaws out. So,
But he did say they may be coming back for more money for maintenance. So again, I don't know what we have plugged in there for them for maintenance.
They did
Not
put in a
very much.
request with a question mark, so there was no figure put in, but they put it on the radar that there was a maintenance figure that might be coming forth from the recommendation of the study.
Okay.
So. Then we go to facility and infrastructure and other. So these are things that might fit under departmental equipment. We have the facility study recommendations, which Steve Moore is familiar with, at the $299,000. It was reduced slightly by the fire department. along.
25,100, yep.
Correct. And I would say this is a lower amount than previous years. It typically runs around $500,000. The facility study averages recommending about $1 million a year. So I would give the PMBC their due in that they've got their hands full with what they've got on their plate right now, between the fire station and Alumni Field and, the other projects that are going on. But it is a lower amount than in previous years, so I would caution at that. And these include school items. So, recreation, major equipment and repairs, this is an ongoing item. It's the third year that we've done this at $50,000 for the Recreation Commission for things like Fay Park, the beach, any of the facility, the general facility maintenance that would need to be maintained even if we didn't have a recreation department. Financial software, this is my budget item. We have a 10-plus-year-old financial software program that's in place that's not able to deliver the demands put upon it for transparency and information to the public and the boards. I would love to be able to do like an OpenGov, which is another program that allows you to drill down into expenses just by going through the website. This program does that. Again, it's a 10-year-old program. It's outlived its life. It happens to be comparable to the conversion costs that we did 10 years ago. So I was initially kind of shell-shocked by the amount, but when I looked at it 10 years ago, it's very close to the same amount.
So is this program resident on your server or?
SaaS, so software as a service.
So it's a web-based
Yes.
service?
So we do eventually eliminate the software service that I'm currently paying to my current vendor, and we don't have to maintain the server that we have on site. It's a great program. We're actually going to go out to a couple of other communities in the next week or two and look at it. It's really nice.
When you say transparency, are you talking about public?
Public, like things on the website. So if you want to see the school department budget or my budget, and you want to see my salaries, and then you want to see, who gets what salary, you can actually scroll out and you don't have to do a lot of reporting. It's just drop down, drop down, drop down, and you can see. It's like that open checkbook program that the state has. It's very similar. It's a great program. And again, it's maintained elsewhere.
In Moscow.
Time to get rid of the abacus.
Yeah.
In what used to be Ukraine, right?
Now you know why you wanted it.
And it's funny, with all the things that like Steve Venuti has implemented, one of the things was the employee benefit statement. He created that himself, downloading, data from the current software, making pivot tables and manually creating this. It does this at a click of a, switch. And he's going to retire soon, and I don't have anybody that can manage that. So we want to maintain these things. We want to do them in a way that's efficient, so.
Yeah, those pivot tables